Welcome to the Coffee House, where in the next hour we go poetry slamming with spoken word luminaries, young and not so young, and follow middle school kids in search of their voices, aided by DC Writers Corps, whose director Kenny Carroll drops by. Also, the local rave scene. Just a club drug haven, or is there something else going on that attracts kids by the thousands? William Greaves joins us. The renowned filmmaker's latest work tells the story of Ralph Bunche, barrier breaker, Nobel Prize winner. And one of our favorites, singer-songwriter Terry Allard, returns with a sampling from her newly released CD, plus a Bread for the World photo essay. Welcome to the forum at the Coffee House. Foul language, gay hatred, misogyny, glorification of gangbanging and violence, they've all been part of rap and hip-hop culture. Ironic, then, that rap is also a leading force in the revival of poetry and in making poetry relevant, even cool for young people. Witness the slam movement. 800 people, standing room only, filled Borders Books and Music on L Street in the district for a competition pitting young poets against their elders.
Who hasn't been to a slam before? Oh, all right. A reasonable number. So I should let you know what you're in for. A poetry slam is sort of WWF meets Waldon Pond.
Where else can you find Poet Lauriat Michael Collier teaming up with a TV celebrity?
Hey y'all, I'm Vanessa Williams. I'm a poet out of Brooklyn.
And the masters of spoken word poetry.
In the year I loved your mother, I lived a glorious death. I was satellite traveling between blood and star, a planet evolving through rage and grief. In the year I loved your mother came the time of drought and deluge, a season of rain and ruin. Between us was much soil and water, an illiterate ocean of language and diction. I arrived to her half broken, half breaking. In the year I loved your mother, we were drum and drone, a volley of polemic and ideal. Once I glimpsed you. You were waving at me from her mouth. One of those nights when dawn met our shoulders, she whispered your name to me. We became the thin line between sea and mountain, between valley and sky. In the year I loved your mother, gravity abandoned me to her. She was vortex, a black hole sewn into the belly of a continent, crushing everything into singularity. Grape was wine, was sound, was song, was motion, was dance, was dove, was vulture, was circling, was landing, was all that was her. In the year I loved your mother was the year tragedy tamed our tongues. We severed them, stitched them into one another's mouths. This is how we grew fluent in speaking pain. We brought stones from our pockets that year, traded them, hurled them back towards each other's wounds. And those that missed, we gathered later and used to build our walls. Your mother was an equinox of razors when I found her. An autumn of featherless wings caught in this traveling gale of a man. Your mother was soft lips cutting the calluses from my knuckles. Your mother was a silk fist lodged hard in my mouth where she opened into a sunflower widening in the crag of my throat. And in your mother's skin, I was cryptic blasphemy, transparent, decoded, and holy. Thank you.
The elders were matched against a team of teen poets.
It seems I've been marked for death since my first breath, so there's nothing left but money, drugs, and sex, living life with no regrets, remorse, or sorrow. So I live it up today because I might not see tomorrow.
My mind is blind with the perpetual dawn of sunshine. Should I cry? Should I die? What brings these tears to my eyes? I'm not faking, I'm just baking in the shine that's in my mind is slowly mystifying. I'm so tired, not inspired by the death of all the rest. I want to cry, don't want to try to make a difference for my sisters who are black, getting attacked by the men of perpetual sin.
If I were a country, I think the eggshell would be the national symbol. I like masturbating because it gives me a sense of accomplishment. I like the way the word parcel crawls off my tongue. I think the sun is my reflection. I want to unwind the Eiffel Tower and graft it to my skeleton. I want my name to be taken in vain for at least 2,002 years after I've exhaled my last breath.
Where do young poets like these hone their considerable gifts? On some of the district's meanest streets, so-called at-risk kids hang after middle school, in school, for the Writers' Corps Poetry Club.
First, I'm going to give you something to drink, and I want you to take a few minutes to think about what this, just kind of think about what you're tasting and tell me what it reminds you of. If you know what this is you're tasting, don't come up with a sentence which says, this tastes just like if I'm giving you steak, which I'm not, don't write, this tastes just like steak. Use your imagination. If you need more than one sip to try to get some ideas, drink it slowly. If you need a little bit more, let me know. But you can go ahead and drink it.
Can I have mine?
No.
It's there.
We're not doing smell. We're doing taste. We have a great metaphor that tastes like a treetop. Someone tasted bitter sadness, and it tastes confusing and unknown like life. I want them to know that what they think matters. I mean, that's really what I would say more than anything, that what they have to say matters, and it doesn't matter if you're 65 or 12 or whatever, but you've got a unique perspective on the world, and to celebrate that. I think that this presence of slams, and I guess with hip hop, is provided more of a community too for students who are interested in writing. It's not so. I don't think it's as difficult to start out when you've got that, you've got your voice changing, you got pimples on you, you have all those things. So at least there are people who know, because of rap, they can say, well, this is okay to do.
There's social support.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it.
Three blind mice. Sorry to interrupt this story, but it's mad night, and I'm going to shine. Oh, you messed it up, huh? And you'll forget your line. Oh, excuse me, miss. You got the time? Oh, it's okay, man. I have mine. And it is three blind mice.
And with a score of 346, we'd like to present this first place trophy once again to Garnet Patterson. In my high school, there was never a trophy that looked like that for poetry in the case. So please give a round of applause for all these fantastic poets and their teachers tonight.
Slams feature something called a sacrificial poet, and this event was no exception.
Voiceover, his walkie-talkie. We've apprehended the suspects. He loosens his grip on my collar and the other officer replaces his handcuffs. Sorry, fella, I was just doing my job. Oh, is your job to rough up every black face you see? Son, you're blowing this way out of proportion. Oh, am I? What was the profile, if you don't mind my asking? We're looking for African-American male, 5'5", wearing blue jeans and a white t-shirt. And I just happen to be a black female, 5'2", wearing slacks. Now, whose profile did I fit? You have the right to remain as silent as you can while I have my foot in your... If you give up this right, then you and about 100 other brothers will be making each other scream in jail. You have the right to a law-minded man who doesn't give a... And if you can't afford one, then good luck, because we'll stick you with the slimiest one for free. You have the right to be called a number and thrown in your cell, and if you can't remember your number, then we'll just brand it on your chest. Now, you have the right to come back here as many times as you like, because when you get out and check that, yes, I've been convicted of a crime box, you'll never get another job again. Now, do you understand these rights as I've explained them to you?
Good. Now assume the position for the rest of your life.
Welcome to Writer's Block at the Coffee House. We're taught early that the pen is mightier than the sword, that the power of language can change the world. Through words, we can be political, ambiguous, artistic, and real, and no one knows that better than my guest tonight. Kenneth Carroll is Executive Director of DC Writers Corps, and he is also an essayist, poet, playwright, and short story writer. His work has appeared in NOMO, Catalyst Magazine, The Washington Post, Gargoyle, and several other publications. His play, Make My Funk the P-Funk, was produced by Woolly Mammoth Theater. He has performed in poetry slams and readings throughout DC and the U.S., and he teaches creative writing at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts. Kenneth Carroll lives in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the Coffee House.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
It's so nice to have you
Thank
here.
you. I
and
appreciate that.
To come and talk a little bit about Writers Corps and what you all are doing. And talk a little bit about the spoken word in Writers Corps.
Writers Corps in 1997, we began a project called the Youth Poetry Slam League with the idea of how to involve kids who may not initially be interested in writing, how to get them excited about writing. And one of the things we thought about was that young teens have a love of competition. And we thought if we could create these after-school writing clubs, then we might also be able to create teams for each school, and they would be poetry teams. And then these teams would compete against other schools, and our sponsor, Borders Books and Music, gave us a place to hold the competitions, as well as gave us support, and all the kids who read at the bookstore get gift certificates. And so it was a real natural kind of thing that came out of our regular creative writing workshops.
Okay, that's fantastic. And Writers Corps has been around, it came out of AmeriCorps?
Yeah, we've been around since 1994, and we started as a collaboration between AmeriCorps and the National Endowment for the Arts. And what it was about was how to get artists in service to communities, especially in underserved communities across the United States. And so the NEA began with 3 cities, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, and the Bronx, New York. And we continue as the 3 Writers Corps sites. And we operate independently, but the focus for all the site is on underserved youth.
That's fantastic. And your programs are here in D.C., at the middle schools primarily.
Yeah, we're at 11 middle schools and 1 junior high school, Jefferson Junior High. So we're at 12 high school, middle schools and 1 high school, junior high. And then we also involve ourselves with high school students who come through the program, and we get those high school students to come back and be in service with the kids in the middle schools. So they do creative writing workshops, they'll do sort of peer-to-peer counseling.
Fantastic.
They'll help us with the readings, and it's just a way sort of to nourish the younger kids by showing them kids at the high school level who are doing the same thing.
That's fantastic. Now you're a writer yourself.
Yes.
So here you are, an arts administrator and an artist at the same time. How do you do that? How do you balance both?
I think for me, because I come from a notion of arts in service, and for me the idea that arts were always going to be functional, and that arts were not something that one puts on the coffee table or the mantelpiece and you just look at it, but it also serves an actual function. And not only that it serves a function, but that it has a purpose to serve a function, that is created with the function in mind. And so, and in DC, there's a rich history of artists in service to community, especially writers. And so out of that tradition, I think I got into the service part of it. And I come from a background where my parents, when we were young, my mother was always working in the community, and so we were always counseled that wherever you are, in what capacity you could serve your community, you did. And so I chose writing as a way to serve the community. Now, in terms of being an administrator, that was not sort of
that wasn't
my
the plan.
goal. No, and administrating can be a death knell for your creative juices, because there's sometimes I sit down at night and I should be writing, and I'm thinking of writing a proposal and who to contact to help fund the program, and it becomes a strain at some level.
Well, they're two completely, that's like the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain.
They're two completely different things. And I mean, even at times when I'm writing proposals, I'll find myself sort of slipping into the other side, and I want to include poetry from the kids. And I've started doing that in some of the proposals, including poetry from the kids in the program, just hoping that the people reading the proposals will see sort of the same fantastic energies and possibilities that we see in these kids.
Yes, that's fantastic. Well, as Kenneth Carroll, the artist, would you give us an example of your work, please?
Sure.
Okay. And I think you're going to start with that quote from James Baldwin in this poem about the flag that we're going to get to.
Sure. Okay. And the quote is, "It comes as a great shock around the age of 5, 6, or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance has not pledged allegiance to you. No flags fly in this shop. Barbara Spriggs, whose family was run out of Jackson, Mississippi in '56 for registering voters, refuses to allow opportunistic jingoists to thump their chest in this moment of mourning. Says simply, no flags. He doesn't mention what the whole shop knows. He has sent 2 sons to the Gulf. One came back broken with dreams he could not end by waking. The other suffers from a disease that the government swears he does not have. Instead, he says, this ain't the time for flag waving, time for thinking beyond killing and revenge, beyond causes and country. I'm ready for some peace. More eloquent than Hitchens or Chomsky, I put my copy of The Nation down, listen while in the background Al Green croons Willie Nelson's Time Slips Away. Scissors scrape across faded hair, create a percussive snip like wire brushes on hi-hat. As the unreconciled past comes as muted testimony from Mr. Spriggs. But we is American, someone asserts, stating the obvious like the insistent prayer of a faithful sinner. This ain't supposed to be happening. Yeah, it was horrific, and them bastards need their ass kicked, begins Barbara Spriggs, hands smelling of coconut spray and alcohol. But by the same token, a barbershop preamble to getting your whole card pulled. You know what they say, you keep running around the world sticking your fingers in other people's beehives, you gotta expect to get stung. Put the pundits to sleep. Let the political hacks go home. It's all been said now. No commercial interruptions for the sale of American flags with made in China labels. The quiet hum of clippers and nappy hair falling to black and white floors. The gallery nods in agreement. No one calls it karma or speaks of chickens coming home to roost. What these black men know this Saturday is that the same old will not save us now. Battle hymns and cacophonous anthems are no substitute for justice or peace. When it is my turn, Barbara Spriggs steps outside, snaps the apron in well-worn ritual. It sounds like a flag whipping in the September breeze. It even has red and white stripes. But it has never been to war, never waved to mock the democracy it represents, never decorated a flagpole used to lance a black man in Boston. I salute the apron in an anti-ritual for the innocent dead and the innocent dead to come. I note its absence of stars. The man with the bag of American flags noiselessly disappears like clumps of black hair blown by a wayward western wind.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
And you know, I'm struck because you're saying that you learn to give back to the community. You also learn to be political.
Yeah.
With your work.
Sure. I mean, because one part of the analysis about the condition of the lives of the people you want to serve has to be political. I mean, there's a reason that people are in the condition they're in, and it's not all by accident. It's not all the result of the failure of particular individuals. That some of this is the reason that there is a collective in the position that we find many people in American cities is that there has been decisions made by people, political decisions made. And I think the poet, part of the poet's job is to speak to that. It's not just enough to draw the picture. It's important to draw the picture of the humanity of the people who are suffering.
Yes.
But it's not enough simply to leave it there. I think the picture has to be drawn broader when possible.
And to put it in words, to speak it, to say it out loud, to not bury it underneath silence. And
yeah, exactly. Because I mean, part of the condition of those people's lives is their silence and a kind of enforced silence, which is what we hope with Writers Corps that we're doing is lifting that silence and reminding them they have a right and have a duty to speak.
And a voice, each and every one, every single voice is an important voice.
Exactly.
So what a gift that is. What a great thing
Yes.
you're putting together. So
Thank you.
Many thanks to Kenneth Carroll for his many good works and for joining me in the coffee house. I'm Lisa Page, and this has been Writer's Block. Thank you.
Rave dance parties. The message kids often get from grown-ups is, raves equal drugs equals death. Are raves nothing but a haven for suicidal druggies? Or is there something more to the scene that attracts young people by the thousands? Is it the art? The lighting? The dancing? The music? The top electronic dance music magazine in America raves about the DC club scene, which attracts superstar DJs like Diesel Boy and Sandra Collins.
I love playing in DC. The crowd here I get along with great, and I usually end up staying for a couple days after, hanging out with people I just met that night.
I think DC has among the best DJs in the country. We have a reputation for very high standards, very high skill level, and we have a very friendly, open scene so that new DJs do get plenty of opportunity to play. As in other cities I've heard, you just don't get opportunities if you don't know somebody or you're not part of the Old Boy network. Sure, the network is here and you have to be friends with so-and-so, but it's much more open, I think, relatively than other countries and other cities in the States. So yeah, we have a very high caliber of DJs. Certain genres get along better here than others, like house is really big here. So house DJs come and succeed and stay, whereas techno DJs, techno is not popular here, so they come and then they leave, or they grow up here and then they find other cities that are more techno-friendly to play in.
DJ Zelda has been spinning for 5 years. She launched the first DJ school in America.
3, 2, 1, release. Beautiful. It takes a lot of fine motor control. It takes a lot of training your ear to hear different sounds and to be able to distinguish, because yeah, it's a lot of electronic sounds all on top of each other. Especially within one record, there's a lot of sounds. Within 2 records, that's double the amount of sounds. Trying to sort those out, get the records going the exact same speed, and place them well on top of each other so that there's a synergy going on.
This isn't your father's or your mother's turntable. DJs today don't just spin discs. They sample and mix multiple audio sources, creating a new and unique sound. Computers are now central to the dance music scene, and VJs, video jockeys, play an ever more central role in orchestrating the multimedia experience.
VJing is not something that it's not something standard like DJing. VJing is, since it's kind of young and new art, you can go from having tapes and just playing them back to having specialized computer programs to mix clips in the computer with, or some people work with feedback, just pointing the camera at a screen and manipulating the feedback that comes out of the screen. There's all sorts of different things that you can do.
And lots of ways to do it. Ask rave artist Era Lachlan.
I like work with plastics, mostly marble. It depends what I can acquire. You know, work with steel, marble, wood, polyester resin. You know, so anything that it's usable. You know, that I can incorporate into 3-dimension.
But the outsider reaction to raves is often one-dimensional, hostile. Lonnie Fisher has thrown large events in the D.C.-Baltimore area for over 10 years. It's not always been easy, like in the summer of 1996.
The last boat party got shut down and raided by the police and the Coast Guard due to an ongoing struggle between my company and the police in the Baltimore area. Basically, there were certain officers who didn't want my company doing events, but they had no legal means to stop us from doing so, so they attempted to frame me for being a drug dealer, which eventually led to me meeting with the mayor of Baltimore, who completely realized that the charges were bogus and reinstated our ability to do events in the city.
But in 1999, DC's Fox 5 TV did a hidden camera expose on the rave scene, a techno event, Buzz.
In the 2 days since our story aired exposing drug use and police officers who appear to ignore it, Police Chief Charles Ramsey has called for an internal investigation. He's also suspended or reassigned some officers, and city leaders are calling for new anti-drug legislation.
Use of ecstasy can result in death, coma, unconsciousness, or brain damage.
The report frightened some viewers, but it galvanized the rave community in D.C., including a rave elder.
After the segment on Fox 5 ran and Buzz got shut down, it was like I had lost my home. It was so devastating to the scene. You know, we didn't take it lightly. Within the scene, we were saying, we got to do something. We can't just let this happen. And so the energy grew, and somebody called for a rally. Let's have a rally in front of Fox 5.
Outside Channel 5 studios, a protest, a peaceful protest. They say the rave scene was not portrayed accurately. It's not about drugs. Instead, they say it's all about the music.
Somebody had the idea that we should all wear yellow to protest yellow journalism, but we would make it, happy and fun, and let them know that we're good people. We deserve to have a place to dance. It was a great, tremendous victory for us.
Rave goers may have won that skirmish, but drug warriors are arming for the next battle. The proposed Methamphetamines Act, for example, aims to jail those it deems, quote, promoters of drug entertainment, people who reasonably ought to know about the presence of drugs at events they sponsor.
I don't understand reasonably ought to know means, and so that really scares me that this is something that we could fall under. And since they are targeting promoters, that Buzz or somebody from Buzz would wind up getting 9 years in a federal prison. And I don't know how we could prevent it any more so than we already are.
Back at the time of the Fox 5 report, there was no group like RPM.
This. So it has this same thing. That's why ecstasy is actually a bit of a longer high.
RPM is the Baltimore and DC Dance Safe chapter. Dance Safe is a national organization, and there's chapters throughout the country, and our goal is to promote the health and safety of the rave and nightclub community. And our chapter has been in existence, it'll be 2 years in September. And we set up booths at raves and nightclubs throughout DC and the Baltimore area, and we give out information using a harm reduction perspective on drug use, safer sex, healthy lifestyles, and we also give out a lot of materials like condoms and lube and dental dams and earplugs and a lot of different information that can relate to partygoers and how they can help keep themselves safe and healthy.
The saying goes, truth is the first victim of war. So it is with the war on drugs, which equates raves with drugs with death. Never mind that in the year 2000, there was just one death from so-called club drugs in D.C., according to the Drug Abuse Warning Network. For the Coffee House, I'm Dagmar Mika.
Hello, and welcome to Rewind at the Coffee House, where we're talking about filmmaking that makes a difference. Today, we're talking to a truly legendary filmmaker, William Greaves, an actor, a producer, a director. Bill Greaves has won more than 70 film festival awards for his work in front of and behind the camera. He's a star of the famous Actors Studio, and he's been called the leading black documentary film director today. It's an honor. Thank you very much, Bill, for joining us today. Bill, you've had great success with your recent documentary, Ralph Bunche, An American Odyssey. It's been shown on PBS, it's in libraries, it's in people's homes. Mm-hmm. It's become an instant classic, and yet it's about an invisible figure in American history, Ralph Bunche. Who is Ralph Bunche?
Who indeed is Ralph Bunche? I think that one of the terrible realities of life is that he's disappeared from the screens of America. He's disappeared from the academic community. America seems to lose track of its history, and our mission is to resurrect it, because Ralph Bunche was a pretty terrific, not terrific, it was a major force in the altering the biography of not only America but the world.
So this man who was a major intellectual and a world leader, the Undersecretary of the United Nations, was also a person who made himself invisible in his work, who got his work done because he passed off the credit to other people, played behind the scenes, was an insider. How did you end up being able to make a film about somebody who kept making himself invisible?
Well, the first thing you have to do is come to know and talk with those people who were closely associated with him, who really knew him quite well. I'm thinking particularly of Sir Brian Urquhart, who wrote the biography, Ralph Bunche, An American Odyssey. I was very lucky to have the opportunity to involve him in the production. And he supplied a lot of inside information on Bunche that did not ordinarily see the light of day.
Let's take a look at a clip from Ralph Bunche, An American Odyssey.
1949. Ralph Johnson Bunche, an African-American mediator, successfully negotiates an armistice agreement between Israel and 4 Arab nations, Transjordan, Lebanon, Egypt, and Syria. The only time in the long history of the Arab-Israeli conflict that all 4 Arab nations signed a peace treaty with Israel. Throughout the world, there is great hope for lasting peace in the Holy Land. For this unprecedented feat, Ralph Bunche is awarded a Nobel Prize for Peace and is catapulted into worldwide celebrity. Less well-known, but more significant and longer-lasting, is the role he played behind the scenes in the historic struggle for self-determination after World War II. A struggle in which over 1 billion people of color gained national independence. How did a black man in America in the 1950s attain such an important level of influence in global affairs?
We ran a story in Ebony saying that Ralph Bunche was the most honored black man. We said Negro, the most honored black man in the world. I think he was the first black man to become a crossover in something other than entertainment. We probably have a bigger file on Ralph Bunche than we have on Michael Jackson.
So you originally made a much longer film.
Yes, well, the story of Ralph Bunche is a very profound, complex, varied story. I mean, it has a lot of facets to it, which demanded that it be given a 6-part series, 6 one-hour installments to really cover effectively the different facets of his life. And I was told that the casual American TV viewer would not sit still for a 6-part series on a man who no one had heard of.
So it was public television who told you to make it at 2 hours and no more?
Yes, absolutely. We had to compress it down to 2 hours. And as a matter of fact, I was very glad ultimately that we did that, because the film has gotten wide distribution, not only on television, but also in our outreach phase of the distribution outreach phase of the film. It's really gotten much more play. It's really quite a good idea that to make a short version so that we could make a longer version, that is to say, so that we could do teaching modules, which is what we're now in the process of doing now, making these teaching modules on Bunch's life.
Tell me something about that, about the educational modules.
Well, you will be able to see them through our company. Will be distributing them to schools and colleges and special interest groups that are interested in conflict resolution and that sort of thing. They're roughly 20 to 30 minutes in length, and they come to grips with those sections of Bunch's life that are very, very important as part of his legacy, and which deal with such things as, for example, we're doing a module on an American dilemma. That was the study of the Negro problem, or the Negro question in American life, that was done by a man named Gunnar Myrdal, who worked with Bunch in the writing of this study. That was a landmark study. We're doing a module that relates to his relationship to Eleanor Roosevelt on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We have him in a module that relates to his relationship to the Congo, the Belgian Congo, and how he was involved with that whole unfortunate development that took place there during the 1960s and 60s and beyond, actually.
With the death of Lumumba and the tragedies that have just continued.
Right. That's right.
You've made several documentaries that have helped us understand American history better and the role of African American figures in them. From these roots about the Harlem Renaissance and Ida B. Wells. Tell us, who was Ida B. Wells?
So Ida B. Wells was a very, very important figure in the whole civil rights movement, the pre-civil rights movement, if you will, of the 19th century and into the early part of the 20th century. She was a very aggressive anti-lynching crusader. She was very much into the problems of the terrorism that was being launched against people of color, in particular the black people in America around the turn of the century. And she was an editor and publisher of her own newspaper. And she led a crusade, an anti-lynching crusade that involved not only America, but the world at large. She took her campaign to England, if you will, to bring pressure to bear on the American body politic.
Bill, you've lived through and participated in many struggles for the representation of African Americans on screen. Tell me, from your perspective and with your background, what do you see as the situation now?
Well, you know, there's a considerable improvement in the representation of the African American on the American screens, because before there wasn't any representation, and when there was representation, it was really confined to very destructive, negative stereotypes. Today, you don't see as much stereotyping, but having said that, there's still a lot of ground still to be covered, because there are more subtle ways to defame, to vilify people on television or films.
So the kind of work that you're doing is, and doing it within, not only on television, but within an educational context, provides an important stream of new information.
Well, trying to tell the truth rather than the stereotypical notions that people of ill will have toward people of color.
tell me, are you going to be doing a
You can ask me.
film in the near future, or are you going to be primarily working on these educational modules?
I think we're going to be working on the educational modules for quite some time. I think we'll be ready to distribute them sometime in the late summer. We're going to be distributing it to schools and colleges, special interest groups and that sort of thing, dealing with those sections of Bunch's life that were not in the 2-hour version or were insufficiently dealt with in the 2-hour version. And we're going to see if we can produce these modules in a way that will make teachers feel that they have more information to cover when they talk about Ralph Bunch.
Thanks very much for this time today, William Greaves. And I hope you'll be able to find William Greaves's film, Ralph Bunch, An American Odyssey, on television, at a community screening perhaps, in your children's schools, or at home. It's a classic. Good luck, good viewing.
day in the second-hand market, she thinks about how she was his target. She did the things that he told her to, 'cause this is what the good girls do. Every day in the second-hand market, she dusts the shelves and she cleans the carpet. She tells him all that he's with his savior. Ah, but she knows better. Fix me up, clean me up, pure and true. Put me back brand new. Second-hand clocks all in a row. Second hands that move too slow. See what happens when you do not run. Damaged goods for everyone. Damaged goods left out on the street. So worn out now they're almost free. Stacks of books and holy sweaters. Gifts from people who just should have known better. Fix me up, clean me up, pure and true. Put me back brand new. Brand First time you're wondering what you've done. Second time and you're just cold numb. Third, fourth, is there gonna be a fifth? Something's bound to give. Oh, 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 She dreams of shiny new cars, shiny white sheets, shiny bright shoes on her feet. She was born with an angel's glow. You give her back her halo. Give her back her halo. Give her back her halo.
Oh, welcome, welcome. Gary, Terry,
Thank you.
thanks
Hi.
for coming on to the coffee house. Little autobiographical song there?
No.
Okay. What was that one called?
It's called Brand New.
Brand new. Okay, speaking of brand new, what's coming up in what's coming up new in your your career, recording career?
I am going to start CD number 4 very soon.
As yet untitled?
Yes, yet untitled.
So all the listeners out there can send in titles based on what they hear?
Okay.
Why not?
Well, that wouldn't hurt.
You give them a disc, right? Is the one that you just played, is that going to be on the new one?
Yeah.
Good.
Definitely.
Good. Besides Gary being on it, of course, other folks?
Yeah, probably we will use a lot of the usual suspects and maybe bring some new people on board too, but I've worked with a lot of great musicians in the Charlottesville area for quite a while. Jim Taggart.
You ought to tell them what instrument too.
Jim Taggart is the wonderful mandolin, guitar, violinist.
Okay.
Jeff Sane plays lap steel and accordion. Sonny Lane is upright bass. You know, he's wonderful, and he does a lot of vocals. All these guys sing too.
So sort of a Charlottesville music mafia?
Yes, and they're wonderful. Eddie Hall on drums. And then who knows who else might come to the mix.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty now of making recordings. You can pause as necessary and add stuff later. And
Yeah. It's great fun to work with musicians, different musicians. I'm having a blast with that part.
You're kind of at that point in the career now where you're out there and people know who you are and they look forward to it.
Yeah.
You know,
You're playing festivals, all the musicians are there, and we all get to hang out, and it's so much fun. So.
Well, let's hear another one. What are you going to play?
I'm going to play one called Makes No Sense, which hopefully will be on the next CD too.
Okie doke. Thanks again for coming. Take it away.
Thank you. Makes no sense for me to love you. Makes no sense to even try. Oh, my mind knows I can't have you, but my heart does not know why. Makes no sense to think about you, 'cause it always makes me cry. Yet thoughts of you remain as true as the phases of the moon, steady as the ocean tide crashing over me. Oh, you surround me, and it feels so good till you pull me down. I'm tumbling around and around and around. The more I fight, the more I fall. It makes no sense to me at all. Makes no sense racing down the highway, trying to catch a speeding train, or to stand beside the ocean, staring down a hurricane. You never wrestle with a lion, because you know you'd never win. And yet I fight these thoughts of you, knowing full well I will lose. They rise and fall and rise again, crashing over me. Oh, you surround me, and it feels so good till you pull me down. I'm tumbling around and around and around. The more I fight,
that's it for this time. See you next month in The Coffee House.